Talk about real estate. How do you find the specific real estate? How do you know what area to go? This is one thing too, on the lending side, obviously all I'm doing is worrying about how can I get our clients to the payment they need? How do they qualify to get into the home, right? How do we get our families into the home? On your side, you're looking at, is this the school district they want? Is this going to fit their family? Can they resell it down the road? I think a lot of people don't really think about that aspect of things too. At some point, you're either going to keep it and rent it or sell it. So what's the strategy like when you're having those conversations?
You hit it on the head with that one. That's pretty much when I'm talking to, especially a first-time home buyer, I'm always trying to teach generational wealth and building wealth through real estate. And when you're looking at your first house, we want to look at this house through the eyes of a real estate investor, right?
Okay.
Because when we buy this first house, this is just going to be your stepping stone to building your real estate portfolio. And so this is not going to be your forever home.
Not many people are buying their first house as a forever home, right? People got to get that out of their head for the most part, right?
Well, most people are thinking that this is going to be their forever home.
But in fact, it's not though, right? It shouldn't be.
If they're working with the right agent, the right agent should be showing them and teaching them how to build wealth through real estate and not just having this be one transaction for them.
Right.
But the crazy thing is the average agent don't invest in real estate.
I was actually surprised about how many real estate agents don't own homes. That was actually surprising to me.
I thought that was crazy when I heard that too, but in my opinion, when you buy real estate as a real estate agent, you automatically get a 3% discount.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because you get to apply your commission towards your down payment.
I'm surprised a lot of people didn't know that too. I was working with real estate agents. They were like, well, I don't have a down payment. Well, one, there's down payment assistance, but two, you can negotiate a higher commission to meet certain minimums too, right?
Bro, it's crazy to me. Down payment assistance, gonna pay your down payment for you. Then you get to keep your commission to help pay for your closing costs. You're moving into your first investment property with $0 out of pocket.
Yeah.
Well, let me not say zero. You still got to get your home inspection. That's about $500 or $600. But you can't. Where can you rent a house for that?
Yeah.
It costs a lot more than that just to pack your stuff up and move. First, last, and deposit.
Right.
It's crazy to me how many people just don't own, especially real estate agents. For whatever reason, people have challenges, but there's no challenge that can't be worked around.
Let's talk about strategy then. That's another thing too. Like a lot of first-time home buyers, you're going to buy a house, and I hear often, this is the biggest thing is, I can't buy a house right now because I can't afford it, or I don't have 20% down. I hear that all the time. And people don't know that you don't need 20% down. People don't know that you can get in with $0 out of pocket.
It's a myth, especially with the covenant loan right now. The covenant loan is crazy. They're giving what, up to $150,000
20% down and closing costs?
That's crazy. It'd be crazy just not to even take the shot.
But the thing about Washington, one thing I do love about Washington in general right now is I think the state wants more homeowners, right? They don't want the investors coming in buying up all the real estate. They want homeowners. So if you are a first-time home buyer or just a home buyer in general, and you say, hey, listen, I want to buy a house, there's over 70 down payment assistance programs in the state of Washington alone. It's just having the right conversation around it. I mean, how many military people do you know?
Man, let me tell you, every time I get the opportunity to have the pleasure of serving someone that's served our country to help them be able to buy a home is one of the best loan programs out there. Zero money down, have the lowest closing costs. And I tell my soldiers, you should be purchasing a property in every station that you move to, because you get to buy the house with no money down, especially in a market like this where things like closing costs is negotiable. You're going to pay rent somewhere anyway, so why not buy a property here, so that way when you're here in your duty station for 2 to 4 years, however long it is, then you turn this one into a cash flowing rental property to start creating some passive income for yourself. So by the time you retire, your passive income from your rental properties that you purchased 15, 20, 30 years ago is going to be crazy. Your retirement fund that you're going to get from the military is going to be basically play money, lunch money, travel money, buy sneaker money.
Well, you have to think about, Quinny, I've never made less than $150,000 from selling a house, ever. Like I'm telling people, just don't realize that most folks won't save that amount of money to buy a home. There's just cost of living, whatever it is, your family's growing, your kids are in sports, so all these things are adding up. And a lot of people don't have that additional funds to save, but you buy a house, the house appreciation in Washington Point, it was 12%.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't it, in house appreciation? So you think about that money growing like that, and then you sell it, and then you put it down on another property, it just makes sense.
Right. And of course, it averages out over years. So
Sure.
you can have some great years where the appreciation's at 12, and maybe 1 year it might be it's 2 or 3,
2 or
but
3.
over time it appreciates in value. I have a client right now that I'm working with that purchased a house 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and they're getting divorced, so they need to sell the property. And if she did not purchase a property and was just renting, she literally has I think it was $250,000 in equity to be able to split between her and her husband when they split up. And if they didn't purchase a house 4 or 5 years ago and they were just renting, and these are people that I had to walk through this process of why you should own a house. Why are you still renting? You're going to be paying mortgage anyway, it's just not yours.
Somebody else's.
You paying somebody, well, you helping somebody else live their dream, help building somebody else's retirement when you can be doing it for yourself and your family.
It's generational wealth. I think that's the hardest thing, or I want people to understand, is this is something you can pay to either your kids, your children, but what a lot of people do is, let's say you build up that equity, you don't have any funds to give to your kid to go to college, you don't want them to have student loans, you can pull equity out of your home. You don't even need to sell it. You can pull equity out of your home. You can build onto your home. You can do an ADU or a DADU, right? So a detached dwelling unit, right?
Yeah.
So if you want your mom to come stay on your property, you can use the equity in that. So there's just so many strategies just having a conversation.
Right. So let's touch on that a little bit. So I own a house. I got about $300,000 in equity. I got a kid that needs to go off to college that I want to pay cash for.
Yep.
And I don't want to sell the house. I want to keep the house. How can I tap into that equity without selling the house?
So there's a home equity line of credit. There's a second mortgage. There's what's called a HE loan, which is basically a second loan on your house where you can make that payment with a fixed interest rate on it versus a variable rate. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of HELOCs out there, home equity line of credit, where it's basically like a credit card on your equity, right? So when you use it, that rate is going to change with the market. Or you can say, listen, I don't want to gamble with the market. I want a fixed rate. I'm going to do a loan and just take that portion out. So there's options out there for that. Again, it's just having the conversation about it.
Right. Real estate is so powerful, bro. If people sleep, I can't believe how many people just sleep on just the power of it and what type of things that it just unlocks for you and your family in the future. How amazing would that be to be able to pay for your kids' college just all cash? And it's money that you didn't have to get up and go to work for.
Right.
It was just you paying to do something that you had to do anyway, which was paying to have a roof over your head.
Yep.
Wow. HELOC, HE-loan.
That's great. So the first-time home buyers, we talked about it. So if you're a first-time home buyer out there, you want to buy a house, there's a way for you to do it. You just need to have the conversation, sit down and talk about it. There's a way for you.
Right.
The other thing is the move up. So you've been in your house, let's just say 5 years, and you've had a couple kids, you got a couple dogs, you need more space, right? So this is the move up that we talk about. So you're going to take that house and you're going to sell that house or rent it. So there's two strategies you can talk about there too. And then how do I get into the next house? So again, we can sell that house, so we can take the net proceeds from that house after you sell it, all the profit, put it down on the next house, or you keep this house, access some of the equity, and you put it down on the next house. That's another thing. So there's options there too. People don't realize that is you can tap into your equity to put down on the next house while you keep that investment. It's still growing in its equity, and then you're renting it out.
And that's actually one of the strategies that I talk to buyers about or sellers about that want to buy, but they're struggling with selling their house because they're in a 2.5% or 3% interest rate, right? But one of the ways to overcome that is like, hey, we can sell your house right now and you'd make $300,000 on your house and you want to buy up to a $700,000 house. You'd only be paying a higher interest rate on $400,000 because you're taking the $300,000 in equity and you're putting that down on your new property. So that kind of offsets having a 6% mortgage on a $600,000 or $700,000 house.
Right.
So you still end up with having roughly around the same payment as you did in your old property.
So many benefits from that too. So now you have two properties that you could potentially pull from or use or access funds from because you have two different investments.
Right.
So the move up is so great. Now let's talk about, you want to become an investor. So how do we house hack? This is such a big thing right now for millennials, these younger investors. They're getting out there. I'm okay with having a roommate. I'm okay with renting my rooms out, all these different things. But let's talk about multifamily. So A multifamily is 2 different units in one. Could be or up to 4.
A house hack can be just one house, and basically what it is, you're buying it owner occupied. You're going to live in a portion of the space, because when you get a traditional loan, it's an owner occupied loan only. When you buy as an investor, you have to put down 20%, 30%, right? So you buy the house as an owner occupied with the FHA, one of the low to no money down programs.
Yep.
You live in one room, or you take a basement downstairs or upstairs and you rent out the rest of the house. I met a young kid at a real estate event in California maybe about 7 years ago, and he wrote a book about this, and he actually started this. At the time, he hadn't purchased the property yet. His name is Craig Copeland, and he wrote a book called House Hacking. I think he wrote the first book on it. And basically, he house hacked his first 10 houses that he bought, he house hacked. And he was so cold with the house hacking, he rented out every single room in the house, and he put sheet in the living room and sectioned it off for his living quarters, and he rented the rest of the house out. And so he actually was cash flowing on these properties, and he just house hacked every year.
You only need to stay in it for 1 year.
One year.
So there's house hacking, and then there's just buying a primary and then renting out the other unit for profit as well, right? So just to give you guys an example, what T was talking about was, if you want to buy owner occupied, you can put minimum down. But if you're buying as an investment property, your minimum down really is 20%. You can do some at 15, but it's not advantageous to you at all. So 20% is the entry level to get in. The 2 options are you house hack, which means that you buy a primary house and you rent rooms out. The other one is there's duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. And in that scenario, you live in one unit and you rent the other units out, but you can still get in with as little as 3.5% down. And it truly is primary financing because you're living there.
And you can do that to 4 units.
Up to 4 units, correct. So there's homes out there right now that have 4 separate units on it. And as long as you live in one, you can do a minimum down primary financing on it instead of having to put 20% down as an investor. And this is such a great aspect. If you're typically a young person, no kids, things like that, you move into something like that, and then you do it a few times, now all of a sudden you have multiple doors and you're an investor.
Well, even not necessarily if you don't have kids, you could be just starting your family.
Sure.
Or even if you have an established family, but now you have a goal to start investing in real estate. And so this is the discussion that you have with your wife or significant other and the kids. Look, this is what we're going to start doing to start changing the dynamics of our family. We're going to make some sacrifices.
Because it's a sacrifice.
We're going to make some sacrifices. Instead of living in the big house, we're going to go buy us a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-plex, where each unit is 3-bedroom, 2-bath. No, it's not 3,000 square feet like we're used to living in. It's only maybe 1,500 or 1,600 square feet. Yeah. But we're going to do this a couple of times so we can start changing the dynamics of our family. Short-term sacrifices for long-term.
Yep. I think that's a great idea. And it's definitely a long game. But if you sit down, you think about the most successful people, it's a plan. It's not a quick burn. It's a plan, but you look 10 years from now, you're like, damn, I wish I would have done that, right?
Yes.
I wish I would have done that.
Let me tell you, real estate is not get rich quick, but I promise you it's get rich for sure.
Because you can buy and hold and rent out, or you can flip, right? There's multiple different viewpoints on that, but you got to see what your appetite is for that too, right? Because then capital comes into play. Great conversation.
Yes,
Great
sir.
conversation.
Yeah, we got to do this more often up in the air. Next time I'll fly.
All right, but not my plane.
X-ray.
Clear traffic, Bonanza 6010 Echo, left downwind 15, clear. Clear traffic, Bonanza 6010 Echo, final 15, clear.
A good approach, brother. Nice approach.